Hi there, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar with APMG International and the Lean Six Sigma Academy. My name's Mark Constable. I'm with the APMG team in the UK, and I'll be your host and moderator for the session, during which we'll be looking at the benefits of delivering Lean Six Sigma Academy accredited training with APMG. I'm delighted to be joined by two guest presenters today, Lemai Howe and Dominic Carborn. Lemai joins us from the Lean Six Sigma Academy as their Business Development Manager and will introduce us to the Academy's background and services. And on to Dominic. Dominic is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, Managing Director of Process Flow Consulting Limited and Chief Examiner for the Lean Six Sigma Academy Certification Program. And Dominic will be covering the technical aspects of Lean Six Sigma for us today. Before I hand over to Lemai and Dominic, bear with me while I cover a little housekeeping. So the first thing to note is we are recording the session today, and everyone that's registered will receive a follow-up email from us once the recording and slides are available. Secondly, you should, unless you're on a mobile device, you should have an option in your control panel for GoToWebinar to submit questions by typing them in. Please feel free to do that at any point throughout the presentation. I'll be keeping a close eye on the questions coming in, and we'll aim to address as many of those as we can towards the end. And last but not least, feedback is very important to us. So any feedback, positive or negative, that really helps us with planning and delivering webinars in the future. Okay, that's housekeeping. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to our presenters. I believe we're going to Lemai first. So welcome, Lemai, and over to you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lemai. I am the Business Development Manager of Lean Six Sigma Academy. I was born and raised in China. I have been living in the Netherlands for about 8 years. I joined the company about 4 years ago. I am very happy today with my colleague Dominic to talk about why deliver Lean Six Sigma training. I will start with our company presentation so you know who we are and what we can offer. Further, Dominic, our Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, he will elaborate more on the details about Lean Six Sigma scheme and the benefits of it. What kind of benefits does it have for your client? Of course, we will be more than happy to answer any of your questions in the end. To start with, I would love to have a historical recap on the historical overview. In 1900, Ford has adopted the lean manufacturing principles. Since then, the Lean Six Sigma method was developed by masters such as Deming, Imai, or Ishikawa. As you can see here, that the development was mainly taking place in the manufacturing sector. In 2000, Lean Six Sigma was introduced in the public service sector. Companies such as banks, insurance, they're all using Lean Six Sigma. In 2009, Lean Six Sigma Academy was founded as a result of an European project. The objective of that project was to standardize the Lean Six Sigma training and certification in Europe. Well, we are Lean Six Sigma Academy, but who are we? What do we do? Well, we aim to build an open, professional, and quality-driven knowledge community of Lean Six Sigma. We collect candidates, accredited training providers, and exam institutions. We share knowledge through white papers, case studies, or webinars like this. Well, quality matters. That is something we stand behind as a scheme owner of Lean Six Sigma. That is why we pay great attention to the quality of our training content. Our training content includes skill sets, which are the guidelines for training and certification, the reference books, exercises, training slides, games, datasets, and so on. So if you go to our website, www.lssa.eu, you will find a page called Resources, where you can download some of the training contents for free. The rest of the content is also available for license for the training providers. We strongly believe in the added value of an internationally recognized certificate. The examination is carried out through our partner APMG. A Lean Six Sigma certificate through APMG will add great value to the organization as well as to the candidate. Well, What makes us different from other providers? What are our unique selling points? Well, first part of the answer is the continuous improvement maturity model. Well, my colleague Dominic will explain this framework in more details later, but briefly speaking, it is a combination of different improvement methods. This framework has two aspects. The one is organizational improvement, and the other is process improvement. So it focuses not only on the process, but also on the people. This framework is a powerful tool. Why? Well, sometimes a client may come to the training provider saying that they want to improve, but they have no idea how to do it. In this case, you can use this framework as an assessment tool to understand where they are now and where they want to be. So based on assessment outcome, the training providers can recommend the correct training and consultancy work respectively. Well, another part of the answer to this question is the two-stage certification, especially for Lean Six Sigma Green Belt and Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. Training is never the goal. The goal is to learn and to apply the Lean Six Sigma in organizational and process improvement. That is why we always encourage the candidate to continue with the project after passing the theoretical exams. Well, in this slide, I'd like to show you how things work. As I have explained earlier, that we are the scheme owner. We work with our partner APMG. APMG handles the ATO accreditation and certification. As you can see here, that I have added some of our ATOs. And in the Netherlands, we have companies such as Symbol, CEST Group, NCOE, and Computran. Well, here I'd like to tell you more about what can we offer to the training providers. Well, generally speaking, we can offer you a one-stop shop service from quality training content to international certification. All our training content have the same structure. They align with each other. Furthermore, they also align with the exams. In order to maintain the training quality, we also organize the trainer-trainer session. Furthermore, we also have accredited trainers that can help a training provider whenever needed. The examination through APMG, the exam can be done online and offline. There are also enough exam centers at different locations. Our exam is available in English and in Dutch. Once the candidates have passed the exams, they can claim the digital badge through APMG and also share their success in the network. Well, I hope till now you have an idea about what Lean Six Sigma Academy is and what we can offer. If not, please feel free to raise any question at the end of the session. Well, now I'd like to give the floor to Dominic, who will explain the Lean Six Sigma scheme in more details.
Hello, everybody. Yes, so we've got a couple of aspects to cover. First, what is Lean Six Sigma and what can it do for your clients? Essentially, why would they be interested in training and learning and certifying Lean Six Sigma? So we start with Lean. Lean was developed by Taiichi Ono, the chief engineer of Toyota. He developed this over a period of decades in Toyota in the car production plant from 1950 through to about 1980. And it was developed to such a degree that it became interesting and noticed by other people in industry and academia. And that was when people like Womack and Jones went over to try to understand what Taiichi Ono had created. And they found that Taiichi Ono had identified wastes within his systems. He viewed the car assembly plant quite holistically as a system. And he figured out that if you could remove waste from the system, then the system would become more perfect. So Lean focuses on the elimination of waste in all of its forms. He identified 3 types of waste: muda, muri, and mura. And those are the Japanese terms. Muda stands for, or is translated as, futility. So this is anything that he could see, or anything that his people could see within the systems, within the processes in the car assembly plant that were wasteful, that were useless, that did not add value for the customer. And he simply tasked and challenged his people to work out how to remove the waste. And by doing so, every time waste was removed from the system, the performance of the production line got just that little bit better. And so we often think about or talk about Lean and Six Sigma also as continuous improvement. Taiichi Ono was, I think, a great believer in human nature, and he recognized that it was easier to identify with the negatives in the workplace than the positives, or easier to identify them. And he came up with 7 classic mudas, 7 classic wastes, and although they're quite difficult to see on the screen, they're on the sort of the wheel on the right-hand side. These 7 wastes enable people more easily to spot the wastes and the futility tasks that they were undertaking. And they were transportation wastes, any time that work was transported from place to place. Inventory, any excessive inventory tended to slow down the process and then created higher risk of inventory being useless, being broken, having defects within it, lifed inventory coming to the end of its life and not being used. The risk associated with high levels of inventory were one of the 7 wastes. Motion waste, every time that an employee excessively moved in order to do their work. If you could get very precise, compact, and efficient movement, then the work could be done with less waste. Waiting time, any time an employee sat or stood waiting for work to come to them, they clearly weren't adding any value to the product or service that they were creating. Overproduction is the 5th classic waste, and this is any time that we make more of something than the customer has actually ordered, and this tends to feed into the inventory waste. If we've made more than we have orders for, there is a chance that that product or service is never going to be purchased. The 6th waste is over-processing. This is where we make any process more complex than it need be. And clearly, every time we have a more complex process, we have more chance of defects, which is the 7th waste. And indeed, in the West, we often add 8th wastes, and the 8th waste that is often added is the waste of wasting the skills of our people. So those are the 7 classic wastes of operations. And then the MURI and the MURA. MURI stands for overburden or unreasonableness. If we overburden people or processes or machines, there is a tendency for them to break or to wear out or to operate at a lower level of efficiency or of quality. And he saw this as another thing to remove from the workplace so that all people, processes and machines operated at peak efficiency and effectiveness. And then finally we have MURA, or unevenness, and he identified that unevenness in all things, unevenness, peaks and troughs in demands, peaks and troughs in work rates at different parts of the process, all added up to reduce the flow of work through the organization. And so it's really flow of work that Taiichi Ohno was attempting to increase by removing the waste within the system. Six Sigma, on the other hand, came from a quality management body of knowledge. It was developed by Bill Smith and Mikkel Harry in Motorola in the mid-80s. In the mid-80s, Motorola, the cell phone plant or division, was riding the wave of consumer need for more and more cell phones. Their processes did not ramp up with the demand. And so their processes were creating more and more defects as they attempted to produce more and more mobile phones. And all that happened was that mobile phones were sent back by disgruntled customers because they were either non-functioning directly out of the box, or they broke quickly after receipt as they were used for the first few times. And Motorola then set about mending and refurbishing and repairing all of the phones that were sent back. I think at one point there was approximately 15 to 20% of all of their production was coming back to be repaired. And Bob Galvin, who was the CEO at the time, just saw the huge amount of cost and resource that was going into repairing all of these faulty phones. And with the help of Smith and Harry, he committed to spending a similar amount of money that was currently being spent on mending the phones, committed to spending that same amount of money on mending the processes so that they made good products. And when they started to do the analysis, to understand what were the causes of the defects, they found that the key issue was variation. Variation in materials, variation in processes, variation in methods, all sorts of variation. Variation is a natural element of everything that we do. And so Six Sigma specifically was developed to reduce the amount of variation in each process step, in the materials, in the inputs, and in the methods. And they found that even though in the top bell curve that we see there, in the top bell curve, even though they were operating to the center, the dotted line indicates their target, they were operating on average right in the center of the tolerance required, right between the lower specification limit and the upper specification limit. So they were perfectly centered. However, the amount of variation in all of those elements meant that it was a very wide bell curve, and from time to time, too much of the time, the variation meant that occasionally they were creating these defects where the variation took the result outside of these specification limits, and we have those ringed in red. The area that's ringed in red indicates defects. And so they set about using quality management to reduce variation. And when you reduce variation, the effect that it produces on the output, on the performance, is that you get a far tighter distribution of results. So in the bottom part of the slide, we see a bell curve of results with a lot less variation, so it's a lot slimmer. And you can see that the tails of the bell curve do not overlap the upper and lower specification limits. And so therefore there's significantly less defects. Now, what they aimed at was achieving this very, very capable process by reducing variation in all of the elements of their process. And they aimed at a 6 Sigma level of capability. And mathematically, a 6 Sigma level of capability produces no more than 3.4 defects in every million opportunities within every aspect of what they did. And therefore, they were able to radically reduce their defect rate. So within the Lean Six Sigma product set, we have different levels of expertise. And at the moment, the Lean Six Sigma Academy and APMG offer certification at the first 4 of these levels: yellow belt, orange belt, green belt, black belt. And the different levels, the different colors, indicate different levels of capability, and also loosely match the different levels that the employees may be working within an organization. We need a spread of these belts within any organization if we hope to continuously improve and transform an organization from a traditional organization with very traditional and average performances and transform it to a Lean Six Sigma transformed organization. So this graphic shows the relationship between the Lean Six Sigma levels of application, which is on the x-axis, and the organizational levels of the employees on the y-axis, and just shows the relationship with 3 of the belts there. So a yellow belt would normally be seen as somebody operational, usually a subject matter expert, and they would normally be involved in the Kaizen activities, the continuous improvement activities at a very local level. They would also be involved in Greenbelt projects. They would be the team members of Greenbelt projects, and Greenbelts would be leading projects at a tactical level. And often we see that the Greenbelts are lower to middle managers within an organization. And then finally on this slide, we've got the black belts, and the black belts operate a little bit more at a strategic level. So more senior managers we might expect to be black belts, or sometimes the black belts operate solely on improvement activities, and we would expect the black belts to be running programs of improvement projects. It needs to be said, I think, that that Lean Six Sigma is not just for manufacturing. Every sector you can think of is currently attempting to apply Lean Six Sigma to continuously improve their performances. Public sector, government, finance, education, retail, health, all of the service industries, they are all attempting to use these Lean Six Sigma, these approaches of continuous improvement to improve the performance of what they do. So going back to those two different aspects of improvement, one of the unique offerings of Lean Six Sigma Academy is the continuous improvement maturity models. This recognizes that to improve, to achieve transformation, to achieve best in practice from a global point of view, we need to improve on two dimensions. The first dimension is we need to improve our processes, and this allows us, this maturity model allows us to judge where we are now within an organization in terms of the maturity of our processes, and also what type of approach we need to apply to move to the next level. So you can see clearly on the process improvement dimension, continuous improvement maturity model here, that the first three levels, we are principally using lean to improve and achieve structure, manage processes and predictable processes. And then we use Six Sigma to achieve more and more capable processes in a way that similar to the way that I explained previously. Equally, we at the same time, we need to develop our organization. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other and be successful. So we need to also be aware of our maturity in terms of organization. And here again, we have an integrated model that enables us to see what we need to do in order to get to the top level of organization. And we start with orientation, we move through leading, and in the middle there, openness. And certainly Lean Six Sigma is viewed as a learning system. It's taken as being active learning always. So we're attempting through Lean Six Sigma to get to this learning level and then move beyond that to create a very agile organization that can react to anything that is thrown at us. So to support this, Lean Six Sigma Academy has produced some skill sets, some syllabi, often known as bodies of knowledge, to support each of these four belt levels that we have described. These are detailed They are divided and organized into units, elements, performance criteria. The units are equivalent to the various chapters within the reference text Climbing the Mountain. And they're the main categories within the bodies of knowledge, within the syllabi. Each of the units is broken into an element, and the elements relate equally to each chapter within, each paragraph within each chapter within Climbing the Mountain. And then the elements are broken down into performance criteria, and each performance criteria is then the detail within the element, and these are describing the tools and the techniques and the competencies that are required to achieve the various belt levels. For each of the performance criteria, there is an assigned Bloom level. The Bloom levels are levels of understanding that are required by each of the levels. They change as we go up the level and they become more advanced. This is straightforward. The first level is just to remember the tool, the technique, or the concept. The second one is to understand it. The third is to be able to apply it, and the fourth is to be able to analyze. And so the exams, the books, the bodies of knowledge, the vanilla materials are all aligned to these syllabi, these units, elements, and performance criteria. The Bloom levels are clearly identified, and the exercises and the content within the books are carefully aligned.
Well, thank you, Dominic, for the detailed introduction on Lean Six Sigma scheme. Well, I'd like to explain here more about the details regarding this exam and certification through APMG. As Dominic has explained, as you also know, that we have 4 belt levels, yellow belt, orange belt, green belt, and black belt. And for yellow belt and orange belt, we have theoretical exam, and green and black belt, we have theoretical exam and practical assessment. But for all those theoretical exam of those 4 belts, they're all multiple choice exams. Here, I want to share more details with you. Like for instance, for Lean Six Sigma Orange Belt exam, we have 50 questions in total and 90 minutes. It is open book exam, and candidates need to have 63% to pass. Well, one example about Lean Six Sigma Black Belt is that we have 3 hours in total, open book, 60 questions, 63% to pass. And for green and black belt, you might be familiar with Minitab. You are allowed to use Minitab during the exam. As we have said earlier, that training is never the goal. We want people to apply the knowledge. So regarding this practical exam, we have also developed the assessment criteria. Now, for instance, for Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, a candidate needs to submit 2 projects after they have taken the theoretical exam. Well, some specific requirements regarding the project, such as it has to be sim level 4 or even higher. And also we have to look at the benefits. Well, we have hard benefits and soft benefits. Like for hard benefits, we would say for black belt, 50,000 euro savings on a yearly basis. As we said, on our website, we have a page called resources. Things like a template can be downloaded there. Here, I'd like to show you just how it looks like. So basically, the candidate makes the project and fill in our template and submit it to us for assessment. Well, Dominic, could you please tell us something more about the benefits of Lean Six Sigma?
Absolutely. So we need to understand what the benefits are to the organizations. This equates to the marketing potential for Lean Six Sigma training and certification. So by learning and practicing Lean Six Sigma, organizations will quickly add value for their customers, their employees, their shareholders alike. It's a win-win-win situation. And they do this clearly by reducing variation and waste in all of their business processes. If we learn to apply the right process improvement tools, we can boost performance in multiple ways. We can improve quality, reduce lead times, increase productivity, we can reduce operational costs, we increase customer satisfaction, we increase employee motivation, and we improve stakeholder engagement. If you could move on one slide, one click, please. So effective Lean Six Sigma implementation in an organization. The study was done of 28 companies that were implementing Lean Six Sigma from the bottom up and the top down. And the average return was $2 for every $1 invested. So that has got to be an excellent reason for any organization to take on Lean Six Sigma.
Well, thank you very much, Dominic. Mark, do you have any questions coming in?
Yes, we do. A couple of questions at the moment, and if anyone wants to get any more questions in, do that via your control panel. But for now, first question, what is the relationship between lean and agile, and how can I or how should I choose between them? I think that's probably one for Dominic.
Oh, that's it. That's an interesting one. I have a personal opinion that Lean Six Sigma is the overriding management system that runs and improves any organization. Many leaders of organizations who have successfully used Lean Six Sigma say that it is simply the way they do business. To a great extent, for me, Agile is almost an application of Lean. There's a great similarity between them. Lean is all about continuous improvement and improving the flow. It improves processes, operational processes. Agile is very much used to improve product development. It's about improving the continuous delivery of aspects of product development or a project, for sake of argument, if we talk about Agile project implementation. So how do you choose between them? If you need to choose between them, then Agile is more often applied to product development and project implementation. It creates a better flow of benefits, paying back quicker the investment in the product development or the project. Lean is definitely, if you've got existing processes that you want to improve the performance of them, then certainly Lean would be your first port of call. But in truth, there's some huge similarities between them, and in an organization that was mature, I would expect to see both Lean and Agile.
Well, thank you, Dominic.
Yeah, thanks, Dominic. And second question, there's kind of two that are both related. So the first part is, do you offer web proctoring on exams? And the second part of that is where the participant can do the exam without coming to an exam centre or central session. That is something that's available, right?
Yes.
Yes. So whilst we encourage training participants to go via one of our accredited training organisations, and they typically have an option. You can either complete the exam in paper format at the end of the course, or we do the web proctoring service as well. So yeah, both options there. And on to the final question I can see at the moment is around costs, Lamai. So I think this is one for you. So can you explain the cost structure and how does this compare to other providers?
Okay, well, thank you, Mark, for the question. Regarding the cost, I think in the general have to see we have different pricing strategies for different regions. Well, I'm gonna take European, Euro region as an example. Okay, first, I think if we talk about the cost for training, well, it is that the ATO they should kind of decide their own pricing strategy for the training. But if we say about the exams, well, we have two kind of types. First is for the candidate who have followed the training via our accredited training provider, and we have candidates who just want to get certified through self-study. Then we have a different pricing strategy. From top of my head, for Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt, the ATO candidate pricing is around €162, and for the Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, the pricing for the ATO candidate is about €216. Yes. But maybe I can share later more information regarding the details if I know who has raised this question.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Lamai, we can follow up afterwards, no problem. So,
yeah.
And there's one further question that's just come in. Do you need to be an ATO to market the Lean Six Sigma training? And yeah, if it's the Lean Six Sigma Academy training specifically, then you do need to be an ATO with APMG. And another individual like the similar information on the pricing, so we'll make sure we'll follow up on those after the session. I think for now that's it. I can't see any additional questions, so I think we can start to wrap up there, Lamai. Oh yeah, thanks for moving forward. So we've got a few links to further information there, just if you want to find out a bit more about the Academy on the left-hand side at the top, and APMG to the right. And then there's also a specific link underneath to the training and certification program. So I think that brings us to a close. So just leaves me to thank everyone very much for attending. I hope you found it useful and interesting today. And many thanks, of course, to Lamai and Dominic for your insights and expertise today. Much appreciated. And just to remind folks that what I said at the beginning, if you missed the very start, we will issue a follow-up email once the recording and slides are available online. So yeah, do look out for that follow-up email. We'll aim to get that out to you later today. So that's it. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Friday and the weekend ahead. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye.